Hello, beautiful internet family. My name is Dan Davis, and I'm the creative director here at DansTube.TV, as well as the Fearless Drone Academy, which is the ultimate online drone course for beginners. And today I've got the ultimate mini drone comparison between the newly released DJI Mini 3 Pro, the Mini 2, which is a very capable mini 4K drone, and the budget-friendly Mini SE, which is capable of 2.7K video. In this video, I'll break down all the differences here and what each drone is perfect for, because there's a clear distinction and difference between the three drones here, not just in terms of price, but in terms of value for money, like what you're getting out of it. They're all fantastic. Like even the super budget-friendly Mini SE has so much going on for it. And if it's your first drone, you know, this might be the perfect drone for you. That's kind of what this whole video is about. I just want you to know the differences between these three mini drones. And throughout the video, just ask yourself that question, what will I be using the drone for? Because it's so easy to see a new drone like the Mini 3 Pro and immediately go, oh, that's a shiny new object. You know, that's definitely the one I want to get. But maybe it's overkill. You know, maybe you're not going to be using the 4K video. You might not even know what HDR is. You might not care about raw photos. And in that case, you know, this drone might not actually be for you, because you could get a budget-friendly drone, one of these two, save a lot more money, and then have money for accessories and, you know, like an insurance plan or whatever that may be, even like Care Refresh to make sure that you get like a replacement drone if you have any issues. It just depends again on your needs, and if this is your first drone or if you're upgrading, and if you do own other drones as well, it just depends again on your needs and why you would be getting yourself one of these three drones. The Mini 3 Pro only just came out, and I've done a bunch of content already on the channel to showcase this amazing new drone from DJI. Now they've decided to go with the Mini 3 Pro name. So they've included Pro in the name here. There's no Mini 3 offering, it's just straight to the Pro. And I think that's appropriate because it really is a Pro offering with a lot of different options. And like I just said, it might not be for everyone. You know, if you're not seriously into video content or taking photos, it's just a hobby and it's just something you want to dabble in, then maybe this is a little bit overkill for you. But that being said, you know, maybe you want to start off with something that has the obstacle avoidance and has the different tracking modes. Again, it's just about asking yourself, what will you be using this drone for? Even looking at the controllers here, we have three completely different controllers. So with the Mini SE, we have this standard controller, which was the old design from DJI that has made a reappearance for the Mini SE. The Mini 2 controller and also Mini 3 Pro controller, because you can get different versions of the Mini 3 Pro with different controllers. This controller here is the updated version. And amazingly enough, the Mini 2 controller does work with the Mini 3 Pro. So if you do own yourself a Mini 2, you can always buy yourself a Mini 3 Pro and then connect the same controller here. So that's really, really nice. And then the other option you have is the new DJI RC. Now this is the new exclusive controller for the Mini 3 Pro. As you can see, a built-in screen here, a beautiful smart controller, and something very unique that is specifically designed for the Mini 3 Pro, something very exciting, and it's only slightly more expensive to get this over the standard kit, which comes with the original controller here. So when we discuss pricing here, I think this is where it's really clear that DJI have carved out three specific markets in the mini drone space, because they've got a clear different price point here. They all have unique offerings. They're all extremely appealing depending on your needs, but they're clearly like well priced and well structured here. So with the Mini 3 Pro and the new controller here, it's 1,299 Australian dollars. This is through the D1 Store's website, and that's just for the drone, the controller, a battery, and a few other accessories that you get in the kit. That's not the Fly More combo, and that's not any other crazy bundle that's out there. It's literally just the drone and the controller, basically. $1,299 for this combo. If you do want to get that other controller, the one that you get with the Mini 2, then it's like $100 cheaper. Or like I said before, you can use your Mini 2 controller and connect it straight up with the Mini 3 Pro. If you're looking at the Mini 2 with the standard controller, that will set you back 749 Australian dollars. So again, that's just the drone, one battery, the controller, and the few accessories you get in the kit. That's not the Fly More combo. That's 749 Australian dollars. So already we've got quite a large gap and quite a big price difference between the Mini 3 Pro and the Mini 2. And then when we go to the Mini SE, this is again the same thing, the controller, the drone, the battery, and just the few accessories you get with it. This will set you back $389. So it's $389, $749, and $1,299. Again, you can see the clear gap and the clear difference in pricing here. They've done a really good job of setting 3 distinct product offerings here in their Mini range. And the Mini SE is extremely affordable and such an amazing price point if this is your first drone that you're going to pick up. All 3 drones weigh under 250 grams, so they're micro drones, that's what they refer to them in Australia, meaning that a lot of rules and regulations don't apply to these smaller drones, which is extremely helpful for people in countries where there are extremely strict rules and regulations around drone operation. So that's why the Mini range is so popular from DJI, and all 3 of these drones are under 250 grams, which is kind of crazy to think about that. That's no weight at all, and the amount of technology we've got in all 3 of these drones is remarkable. If you are considering one of these drones, I do have a bunch of exclusive bundles over on the D1 store. They're exclusive DansTube bundles, so that means that only my audience have access to these exclusive bundles. So I will have a link below if you want to check that out and get yourself a brand new Mini 3 Pro in an exclusive bundle with a few extra accessories. You can also contact the D1 store directly at sales@d1store.com.au. If you mention DansTube, you will unlock special pricing. So if you want one of the other drones that's not available in the bundles there, or if you just want, let's say, the Fly More combo of the Mini SE or Fly More combo of the Mini 2, email them directly, mention DansTube, and they will help you out with some special pricing. Moving on to the camera systems on the 3 Mini drones. Now, the Mini 3 Pro has the improved camera, as you would imagine, but when we're looking at the actual sensor size, the Mini 3 Pro has a 1/1.3 inch sensor. And when we look at the Mini SE and the Mini 2, they both have 1/2.3 inch sensors. Again, as I made that comment at the beginning of the video, they pretty much have the exact same camera system. When you look at it, it's clearly pretty much identical. It's almost like a software limitation that doesn't allow the Mini SE to shoot 4K. They look pretty much identical. And when we get into some of the specs, you'll see that they do share a lot of the specs there. So when you're looking at the Mini 3 Pro, for example, it's got a significantly better camera system. The sensor is a 1/1.3 inch sensor, which is extremely impressive for such a small drone that's under 250 grams. But that's one of the standout features here, and that sensor does unlock a bunch of new options as well. When we look at aperture as well, we can see that the Mini 3 Pro again excels. It's got an aperture of 1.7, that's the f-stop that it's kind of locked out at, where we look at both the Mini SE and the Mini 2, and they've both got an f-stop of 2.8. So again, the Mini 3 Pro excels here, better low light performance, a larger sensor, so it's allowing more light in, more information, and it does produce a significantly better image when we look at the Mini 3 Pro. Now, in terms of video resolution, which could be one of the main calling cards for you if you're going to be using a drone for video, if we look at the Mini SE, this awesome little camera system here can capture 2.7K at 30 frames per second, which again could be ideal for you. If you're just uploading to social media, if you're just capturing videos to share with friends and family, you might not need 4K. 2.7K is still fantastic, and the image you can get out of the Mini SE is great. Most people are not going to be complaining about it. It's only those people that kind of care deeply about, I guess, resolution or the bit rate or, all those little details that do make a difference. They're really going to care about a larger sensor. But for the majority of people out there that are just using it for fun, 2.7K at 30 FPS is going to do the job for you. The Mini 2 takes it to the next level over that 2.7K, and it can capture 4K up to 30 frames per second. Again, the sensor looks pretty much identical. The only difference is that it says 4K on this sensor, but the Mini 2 can capture 4K up to 30 frames per second. Obviously, having a larger resolution, more pixels, you are going to notice a difference here. And I will say the Mini 2's 4K is obviously better than the Mini SE's 2.7K, but it's only a slight improvement here. Like, yes, it does look great on paper to see that 4K, and yes, the 4K is better than the Mini SE, but again, it's about asking yourself, what are you going to be using it for? Are people actually going to care or even notice the difference between 2.7K or 4K? That's the question you really need to ask yourself. And then when we go on to the Mini 3 Pro, this is where that significant increase happens again. And because we've got an improved, larger sensor here, you are going to notice a improvement. Even when we look at the 4K footage, you will notice an improvement over the Mini 2 when you look at the Mini 3 Pro footage. This camera system can capture 4K up to 60 frames per second. So that's an improvement over the Mini 2, but it can also capture 4K 30 frames per second with HDR video. So again, if HDR is really important to you, this could be the drone to go for. But for the majority of people out there, they're probably not even going to care about HDR, especially for the Mini market, you know, because this could potentially be your first drone and HDR video might not be that important to you. But if 60 FPS is important to you and that improved camera system, then the Mini 3 Pro is the go-to here because it is a redesigned camera system that is significantly better than the previous two drones, the Mini 2 and the Mini SE. When it comes to the 1080p options, the Mini 2 and the Mini SE have the exact same offering here. They can do up to 60 frames per second at 1080p. So there's no like clear slow motion offering here. Yes, you can shoot 60 FPS and then, you know, slow it down, and that's all fine and good, but there's no built-in slow motion offering for either drone here. But when we look at the Mini 3 Pro, this actually does have a built-in slow-mo offering, which is something I've actually showcased on the channel, and you'll see some footage popping up here. So the Mini 3 Pro can capture 1080p up to 120 frames per second. I will say though that the image quality is not fantastic. Yes, the footage looks cool, and it's great to have some slow-mo options in here, but I will say that a lot of the time it isn't like desirable footage that I would be looking for. Sometimes the focus looks really soft, it looks relatively pixely and noisy in the image, so I wouldn't like highly recommend the drone just for slow motion. Like if that's the thing you're looking for, then you can probably buy yourself a different drone because slow motion is not the strongest point of the Mini 3 Pro, but it is something unique that it has over the other two. Now again, going back to these two drones here, the Mini 2 and the Mini SE, they both have the exact same offering in terms of megapixel count if you're talking about still photos. So they both have 12 megapixel sensors. The one difference though is that the Mini 2 can capture RAW photos where the Mini SE is only capturing JPEG. So again, it depends on your needs for photos. If you really deeply care about photos and JPEGs from the Mini SE are not going to be enough, then the Mini 2 does offer RAW options. Now the Mini 3 Pro excels again and goes up to 48 megapixels. It's one of those things where they're clearly like stitching the images together. It's probably a 12 megapixel sensor that has been like quad processed to create that 48 megapixel option. You know, when they take 4 individual photos and then kind of stitch it together. But still, the 48 megapixel photos that you're getting from the Mini 3 Pro are definitely better than the other two drones. You can capture JPEG as well as RAW photos here. And the fact you have the 48 megapixel option, because it's actually an option you have to enable in the settings, again, is a significant improvement over the other two drones and could be, again, a reason why you would want to spend a little extra money here. Flight time is very similar here. The Mini 3 Pro has a flight time of 34 minutes, the Mini 2 has a flight time of 32 minutes, and then the Mini SE has a flight time of 31 minutes. So they're all very, very similar. It's not a major improvement. With the Mini 3 Pro though, there is an option for a plus battery, but then that takes the weight over the 250 grams, which means that you wouldn't be able to fly it in certain countries with, you know, the rules and regulations that pop up when a drone weighs over 250 grams. So it just depends whether you're, I guess, willing to sacrifice that to then have the better battery life. Because with the Mini 3 Pro, I believe it's up to a 47-minute flight time if you swap that battery over, but then the drone weighs over 250 grams, which then means that there's other rules and regulations and, you know, other things that might come into play there. So when we look at the transmission range and what's going on here between the three different drones, the Mini SE has a range of 4 kilometers and it's using the enhanced Wi-Fi. So that means that you might have more interference in more densely populated areas, and having enhanced Wi-Fi is definitely not as reliable as the OcuSync offerings that are available on the Mini 2 and the Mini 3. But the fact that this is 4K, you get 720p up to 30 frames per second as a live video feed on your phone. That's great for most people, and 4 kilometers is fine, honestly, for the majority of people. You need to keep your drone in line of sight anyway, so it's going to be fine for most scenarios and most situations, especially because a lot of the time the beautiful spots you want to fly in are away from houses, so you're not going to have as much interference there. So 4 kilometers is fine for the budget drone, but it definitely does change when we look at the other two drones here. For the Mini 2, we have up to 10 kilometers of range. We've still got the 720p at 30 frames per second as the live video feed. But the fact we get 10 kilometers of range with the new controller design, and we're also using OcuSync 2.0, which is the specifically designed transmission system from DJI. That means it's a lot more reliable and consistent, and you don't get as much interference as you would from the enhanced Wi-Fi. That's probably another reason why the Mini 2 could be the preferred drone over the Mini SE, because you're getting better range, a more reliable transmission, and you're also getting a redesigned controller as well. So I think that's one of the big calling cards here of the Mini 2 over the Mini SE. When we look at the Mini 3 Pro controller, we obviously get this redesigned controller system here. It is using the OcuSync 3.0, and it gives us a range of up to 12 kilometers. Now, like I said at the beginning or earlier on, you can connect the Mini 2 controller to the Mini 3 Pro. I believe that that would still be OcuSync 2. If you get the newer controller like this one here, but in the bundle with the Mini 3, I believe that's when it becomes that 12 kilometer range. And it also has 1080p at 30 frames per second for the live video feed. This controller here is great. I will say the screen itself looks fantastic, but straight when you record the screen, the quality does dip a lot. And yeah, I don't find that the quality of the screen recording is phenomenal, but the screen itself when you're using it is great, and it's usable for pretty much anyone. I find that this is actually my go-to drone at the moment, the Mini 3 Pro, and I just love having a dedicated controller that just launches straight into the DJI Fly app. There's no fluff, there's no playing around with anything, it's just straight into the action. When we look at the build quality of these three drones here, you definitely notice a significant improvement with the Mini 3 Pro. Now, I'm not just saying that. When you hold them in your hand, you can feel the difference. The Mini 2 and the Mini SE, like I said before, have pretty much identical form factors and builds. The same materials, literally the same chassis has been used. So it's a very similar design, if not identical. And you look at little things like the arms, for example, even just the legs there. Yeah, they're great, but they are just a little bit flimsy. You know, you can feel that it's a relatively lightweight plastic. Even when you look at that little trapdoor on the back, it just feels very cheap. But then when you compare it to the newly designed Mini 3 Pro, you can actually feel the quality of the legs. They're very, very sturdy. The chassis itself just feels a little heavier in terms of the build and the overall aesthetics here. They've clearly used some more premium materials to make it feel like a Pro offering here. Yes, it does still feel light at times, and even like the button on the back for the battery door, like that does feel relatively cheap if I'm to compare it to like the higher end drones like the Air 2S or the Mavic 3, but it still feels significantly better than the Mini SE or the Mini 2. And, you know, looking at everything, the arms, the build quality of everything, you know, even the actual camera system itself, everything just feels a lot more premium here. And I guess that's why it makes sense that they've called it the Pro, because it really is a Pro offering for a mini drone. One of the most important reasons why you would want to get the Mini 3 Pro, and one of the unique offerings from the Mini 3 Pro, is the fact that it has tri-directional obstacle avoidance. So you'll see it looks like a frog from the front, but it does have two large obstacle avoidance sensors at the front there. It's also got them behind, facing backwards, and you also have them facing down. Now, if we look at the Mini SE and the Mini 2, they have no obstacle avoidance sensors. They do have these vision positioning sensors here, which will basically, you know, give you an idea when you're getting close to the ground. So that's some form of a sensor, but it's definitely not obstacle avoidance, and it definitely doesn't give you any options to do any sort of tracking or following modes here. There have recently been updates where you can use third-party apps like Lychee, Maven or DroneLink, and now you can unlock follow modes, waypoints, different tracking modes for both your Mini SE and your Mini 2. So that means that both of these drones can unlock those Pro features, but you have to use a third-party app to unlock those features. So again, that's where the Mini 3 Pro excels. It's got that tri-directional obstacle avoidance. which means that it can avoid in 3 different directions: front, rear, and downward facing. There's no side sensors, but there is something in the settings to disable sideways flight. That means the drone doesn't have to fly left or right, so you can avoid hitting anything. I don't always recommend using that because it then limits your control as the pilot. But the fact that we have 3-way obstacle avoidance is phenomenal, but that allows us to have some really cool features. So we can have A-Pass 4.0, which is fantastic because the Mavic 3's got A-Pass 5. So this is only like 1 step behind the Mavic 3 in terms of technology. And A-Pass 4.0 means that you can bypass, or the drone can bypass, things in the environment while continuing to track a subject. So that means that it doesn't just stop and kind of go, well, I don't know what to do now. It actually maps out the environment and tries to avoid things in its environment. And that's what the A-Pass does, and does an amazing job with the Mini 3. Like, I've got a video on the channel where I've tested it in like a really dense area, and it did a fantastic job. So I was very impressed with the A-Pass offering from the Mini 3 Pro. This also means that we can unlock the focus track modes, which again are not available on the Mini 2 or the Mini SE. This means that we can unlock Active Track 4.0, we can have Point of Interest 3.0, and also Spotlight 2.0. They're basically all the versions of those different modes, but Focus Track is just the general mode. When you draw a box, it will pop up with those 3 options: Active Track, Spotlight, and Point of Interest. You have all of those available on the Mini 3 Pro, and you do not have any of them available on the Mini 2 or the Mini SE. Looking at the Mini 2 and the Mini SE in terms of their wind resistance, they both have the exact same wind resistance. The Mini SE actually had an improved wind resistance over the previous budget drone, which was the Mavic Mini. But both of these drones have a scale 5 or a level 5 wind resistance, which means they can handle up to 10.5 meter per second winds, which is insane for such a small drone. Both of these are extremely capable in high winds, and they both do a fantastic job. The Mini 3 Pro is very much the same here. It can only handle slightly faster winds, up to 10.7 meters per second, but it's pretty much the exact same offering here. It probably does handle the wind a little better just based on me witnessing the drone flying. I would say that the Mini 3 Pro does handle it slightly better. You've got to remember it's got a completely redesigned body here, like the arms actually come up more so than the other drones that we're comparing here. So it's a completely redesigned system, stronger arms, and overall I would say that it does handle the wind slightly better, but nothing like majorly noticeable here. When we look at the exclusive offers for the Mini 3 Pro, that's where the price really makes sense, because yes, it is slightly more expensive than the Mini 2, but it does have a lot going on for it. The first thing is this rotating camera system here. This allows for you to capture true vertical videos. So if social media is your game, you love TikTok, you love Instagram, you want to start creating some aerial content, this is the drone that will give you that experience. It allows you to capture that true vertical video. You can capture photos and videos in this mode. You can't use Active Track or any of the other modes, but it does allow you to create reels, TikTok, shorts, all of those things by literally just tapping a button. The camera flips, and then you can start capturing some really cool vertical videos. The other thing that's very unique about the Mini 3 Pro is the fact that they've left like a little cutout here, which creates that frog look. And it allows the camera system to look upwards, and it gives you 60 degrees of range. So that means that you can get some very unique perspectives looking up, where the Mini 2 and Mini SE do not give you anywhere close to that, because they're actually limited by the design of the body here. Yes, you can look up slightly. I think it's maybe 20 degrees, I want to say. But you look at the Mini 3 Pro, it's 60 degrees, gives you a very unique perspective looking up. I've mentioned all the unique offerings that the Mini 3 Pro has to offer, basically, over the other 2 mini drones. It can also capture time lapses as well as master shots. So alongside the Active Track, the obstacle avoidance, the A-Pass, the 48 megapixel, the HDR 4K, all of those crazy features, it can also capture the master shots and time lapse options. Master shots seems to be reserved for the Pro drones. So it's cool to see that it's come out with the mini drone here. But the Mini 3 Pro honestly is such a feature-rich experience. It has everything you need in a drone and is almost the ideal mini drone on the market right now. So like, this is the drone to go for if you have the money and you can justify it. If you're upgrading from one of the other drones, like let's say for example, you got yourself the Mini SE, you fell in love with drones and you're thinking, I want to get another drone. the Mini 3 Pro could be the one to go for, especially if rules and regulations are tight in your country. I will have a comparison between the Mini 3 Pro and the Air 2S because they're very similar in their offerings. So I thought that would be a really cool comparison. But let's say, for example, you want to stay on that mini size point. You know, going from the Mini SE to the Mini 3 Pro is actually a significant upgrade. Even just looking at the video quality, you do see a major difference here with this larger sensor and just this improved overall experience from the Mini 3 Pro. It is something very unique and crazy that they've been able to do that in a small form factor, under 250 grams, and you can get all of these Pro features. Just insane. Even though the Mini 3 Pro is clearly the best drone here in terms of the features that are available, in terms of the photo quality, the video quality, everything that it has to offer is basically better than these two drones. But that's just the way it is. You know, they've set 3 distinct price points here, and that's why the Mini 3 Pro is the way it is. That's why it's a Pro offering. But I still think the Mini 2 and the Mini SE still have a place. You know, they clearly have a place in the market. The Mini SE, for example, for $389 to get such a capable mini drone is just insane to me. Like, that's such a budget-friendly price point for people. It's a great gift for people, especially if someone's interested in a drone. This is a great starting point. 2.7K is ideal for really anyone. Like, most people that are going to be using a drone, 2.7K and 1080p is going to be great for you. You're going to be happy with that. Yes, you don't have the obstacle avoidance. Yes, you don't have the tracking modes. But if you get yourself a third-party app like Litchi, DroneLink, or Maven, then you can literally have like the Pro offerings in a mini, affordable, budget-friendly drone. It's just amazing to me, the Mini SE. And honestly, I think it still has a place for so many people out there. The Mini 2, on the other hand, is, like I said at the beginning, very similar, very, very similar to the Mini SE. The big calling cards here is the improved controller with the OcuSync 2.0. So that additional range and that reliable transmission definitely makes the Mini 2 like worthwhile over the Mini SE. If range is important to you, if you think that interference is going to be a problem, the Mini 2 is the one to go for that extra range, but still that affordable price point. And it also gives you the 4K options, as well as having raw photos as well. So again, it's a clear like improvement over the Mini SE. It's got specific needs, like if you want raw photos, if you want 4K, if you want improved range, then the Mini 2 is the one to go for over the Mini SE. And then the Mini 3 is clearly the feature-rich Pro experience here. This is going to future-proof itself for a long time. I don't think we're going to see a mini drone from DJI for a few years now. And to have that dedicated controller with the built-in screen, like these two together are such a cool combo. And I think for most people at $1,299, $1,299 for a dedicated controller with a built-in screen and a Pro drone, that's honestly amazing value for your money, for what you're getting here, especially if you're in a country where, you know, rules and regulations are pretty tight. This is like the go-to drone right now. It has so many options, so many offers, and I'm sure that we're going to see it improved over time as well with future updates. Like I said in the middle of the video, if you do want to pick yourself up one of these drones, I will have a link in the description below to check out the exclusive drone bundles that I have over on the D1 Store's website. You can also reach out to them, sales@d1store.com.au. Let them know that you're watching DansTube videos, ask about the special pricing, and they'll be able to help you out with whatever you're looking for. That's probably the best way to go about getting what you're looking for exactly, and just having a conversation with them. They're very helpful, and they can help you make the right decision for you. But anyway, that's the end of this epic long mini comparison video here. Like I said, I think they all have a place in the market. And I think if you ask yourself, what are you going to be using this drone for and what features are important to you, just make a list of, you know, the features that you actually care about, and then you can figure out what drone is right for you. I think you're going to be happy with whatever drone you get, especially for the beginners out there. Don't feel like you need to get the Mini 3 Pro. You're honestly going to be fine with the Mini SE or the Mini 2. But that's the end of this video. I'd love your thoughts in the comments below, and I will chat to you in the next one. Peace.
I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can't get this off my mind. Does it only control you? Let me in, I'll help you out.